Welcome, YouTube family. I know it's been a while. We're back here with Mike, Mossy, myself, Ali, and we got special guest Sahil. So we've been in a little bit of hiatus. As you guys may know, obviously with quarantine, there's not much topics to be discussed in the world of sports. But since The Last Dance has dropped on Sunday night, episodes 1 and 2, we definitely want to talk about that, give our input, and we love to hear from you guys as well. So let's kick it off. What do you guys think about The Last Dance, the first 2 episodes? I think it was great. It was much needed. It was perfectly released, especially for this time during the quarantine, because not many people have things to do. It was a great thing for the people so they could watch and enjoy and really understand how that season for the Bulls went, that 97-98 season. A lot of the stuff, personally, I was too young, so I don't recall. So it's great to see the behind the scenes of how everything transpired during that season. I just want to hear your guys' input before I dive deeper. So, Mike, regarding what you saw, what did you take away from the first 2 episodes?
Well, I mean, for me, it was pretty interesting, right? First, like the first 5 minutes of it, I was focused on my phone because the Fire Red 5s dropped on the Sneakers app, which was interesting. Hopefully, they do that every Sunday. Shout out to Jordan Brand and Nike. So it was good to get that cop in that time, but everything else, like especially episode 1, when they talked about like how Mike came up from being like this high school player, and you heard a lot about things on social media or whatever the case, that, you know, Jordan got cut from his team and all this stuff. But, you know, you have people leaving his practice in senior year like, yo, this is the best kid in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And him to go to UNC and blow up the way that he did time over time, he was progressively the same person and just got better and better and better. And it's nice to kind of see that legacy almost be cemented, and that ideology of him be like so in your face in that moment. At least through episode 1 and episode 2, like understanding that like the GOAT didn't do it all by himself. He admitted that like Scotty was my teammate. That was my best teammate ever. And every great needs like at least one other player. And Scotty was that guy, and he never denounced Scotty. Never did he denounce Scotty. He never said that. And for it to come out in the documentary in that way, and us to see everything that Scottie Pippen even went through, not just Jordan, right? And for them to even show that in his documentary and have that selflessness to it was pretty nice. And it was part of his journey, and it just showed you why it was so great.
I mean, Jordan was making $33 million, Pippen was making $2 million. So, I mean, there was definitely a big difference there. I mean, honestly, we've been all waiting for it, right? I mean, Jordan, the greatest basketball player ever. There's no debate on that, honestly, in any channel, whoever's fan you are. We all know that Jordan's the GOAT and he's never getting passed. So we all heard the rumors about the story behind the scenes, about his gambling and all this stuff while he was going to win championships. So it's a good way to shed light for the fans to see the behind the scenes and kind of really capture how much hard work it takes even when you are the GOAT to achieve that. And on top of it, I mean, we're bored. I mean, they were supposed to come out with this in the summer, but it's a perfect time to release. ESPN rankings were down. Nobody's watching ESPN. There's just reruns. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a good series. Everybody's very in tune. You got the best basketball player ever to step on the court. His story on the run to the championship. So I think everybody will be very intrigued. And it was the first 2 episodes really pulled everybody in from how they kind of blew the curtains off just to kind of start it off.
So I'll hop in. Like from what I've heard and listened to, because I've been listening to podcasts and everything just in the past couple of weeks about the whole Jordan doc. First and foremost, like I never said like why The Last Dance, and imagine this were to happen in today's world. Like imagine a general manager were to pull away the greatest team, the greatest dynasty in like all of sports. Like they literally own the decade. So it's not the players leaving, it's not the coaches, it's a GM that supposedly they made a joke that he was the enemy in Space Jam because he looked like him. So it was just funny like listening to that as a whole that, like, because I was telling Cena, I'm like, yo, you know why it's called the last dance? He's like, oh, because the final season. I'm like, no, because the GM Jerry Krause pulled the team away because he said you could go 8-2-0, but I'm still taking everyone off the team except Jordan. So like just hearing that was crazy. And then second, it's like Jordan, like I'm too young. I'm pretty sure we're all a little too young, but like you just hear stories. So to finally watch like videos and like the way like Charles Oakley was grabbing like Scottie Pippen against the against the lockers, and like just seeing those scenes and how like serious Jordan was, that like when he says when you take someone down, don't ever give them the light of hope. Just keep on knocking them down till there is no more like breath of air and stuff.
Right.
You don't see that in today's world outside of Kobe, realistically. So it was nice to like see that. And from what I know and heard, it's only the first two episodes, and the two episodes, the first two were not even the best. So there's so much more to come.
Yeah, it was great episodes. What I want to get into is, I know this was discussed by a lot of people. Jerry Krause, right? This is the architect that built Michael Jordan's Bulls. He was the one that drafted Jordan, and then he got Scottie Pippen with the 5th overall pick in the '87 draft, as well as Horace Grant. So basically, it seems like he's being demonized because he was the reason, as Sahil pointed out, that he wanted to tear everything down. What do you guys think, if he did not tear that 97-98 Bulls team down, do you think they could have gone on another couple of years of good runs in them, or you think it was time to move on from everyone else but keep Michael Jordan? So this is a debate that I've had within myself, because I was trying to look at it like, was he really wrong for breaking it up? Yeah, but at the same time, he had a vision of moving older pieces outside of Mike. I just want to get your input on that. So go ahead, Mike.
Uh, I can't say it's fully wrong, right? Like I can't really say that. It's hard to just say like, oh, you're just completely wrong for what you did. There was vision. Right? He's a GM. And whether his vision is right or wrong, like there was something there. And maybe it's ego and arrogance, and it's like, oh well, I'm just gonna do it because I can. But at the end of the day, like Jordan was such a polarizing player.
Yeah.
So it was like, if I get all these other pieces and get all this youth in here, then I'm gonna try to do that. Not saying he's like fully justified, but it's say he's right.
Mike, I think we're having technical difficulties, bro.
Yeah, you're getting kind of cut
hello?
off.
Yeah, you got a little caught off over there.
It's the quarantine life, you know. When you're away Zoom meeting, those things happen.
Yeah, I know.
Honestly, to jump into that point, you're paying one player $33 million in 1998. You know what I mean? So the cat, like, it's a lot of money. If you really, because somebody posted it up on Twitter, just a salary on each player. The next player, the highest next player was $4 million. So when you got one player making $33 million and the next highest player is $3 million, so I'm sure there was push in different ways on building the team the right way. Maybe he thought getting younger players would kind of extend Jordan, and maybe because Jordan wasn't all like, he was a diva too. He wanted his money. He wanted to show that he was the best player and he's getting paid the most, and he wanted the spotlight. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You can never tell, but in the same time, they had their run, and there's a lot of reasons I think that team broke up. I don't think the GM is the only reason that kind of it fell apart. I think there's a lot more behind the scenes to that than just the GM wanting to do it just because he wanted to do it.
And just like Marcy mentioned before, like we don't know like what it looked like money wise and how that was going to go. Like Jordan was a diva. There were other things he had to handle. So it's hard to say that he was right or wrong in the situation, because at the end of the day, like it was at the thought for the organization more than anything else. And sure, there's ego in there too, but it's all about money and how that stuff moves. So who knows?
Yeah. But honestly, the biggest problem with the whole like money situation is, first of all, the misconception that, like, for example, Matsi said Jordan was getting paid $33 million. Well, that's because like the first 10, 12 years, Jordan wasn't getting paid. Jordan was not even like top 10. If you look at the salaries, there was people getting paid more than Jordan and Scottie. And the reason Scottie was getting so underpaid was because he had a back surgery, and people thought he was unhealthy, and Scotty thought he was not going to make it himself. And even the owner said, like, dude, this is a terrible contract. He's like, but I need it. I need the security. But the biggest problem was like the owner, number one, I think is the number one problem, and Jerry Krause also. They had so many opportunities to renegotiate with the players and give them longer deals and lock them up, but they didn't. And then back to Cena's question, I honestly think they would have won because Scotty did make it to the like Western Conference Finals versus Kobe and Shaq, and took him to 7 games with the Blazers. And then also Jordan was not coming off of like, he didn't take any team to game 7 in the finals. He had tough teams in the Eastern Conference, but at the end of the day, he was Jordan and he would just prevail. So I don't think, like, I think 100% they were wrong, the owner and GM. At the end of the day, yeah, they had a future of what, like, oh, let's draft these players and this yada yada. But honestly, you should have kept what you had. At least let them go down. You have to go. Let the go down himself. Don't kick him out the door. It's kind of like what Tom Brady's going through right now. Patriots letting him go. It's just not the right thing to do.
Yeah, so it was like a 50-50. I was trying to play devil's advocate as far as the Jerry Krause situation. I was like, okay. I was like, let me think about it similar to Bill Belichick. But if kind of think about it, it's hard. Like Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. I mean,
and the thing is, Brady lost in the first round. Jordan just beat the Jazz.
Yeah,
and there was really no team touching him and his teammates.
He did say an important thing. He was like, until we lose, we should keep this going, and then once we get knocked off,
guys,
then do whatever you want.
You guys are saying, and like, oh, Brady came off. Brady also played 20 years football. Like, there's a difference. Jordan took time off. Jordan didn't win before he had his teams. You're talking about 8 years of Jordan not making it. So it is really hard to say. But back to the money, yes. So he wasn't making that much money in the beginning, but when you're making 33 million and the next person on your team that's also winning 6 straight is making 4 million, the difference is insane. And Scottie Pippen, even with the back issue, he was making $2 million a year.
Like, no, but when he first signed the contract, he was top 7.
He was only one. Like, my point over there is that I think there was a lot of Jordan had a lot of hand in it as well. I think it wasn't just the owner and the GM trying to break it up. I think Jordan had a lot of say in that team, and if he wanted to, he could have stepped in and really pushed for it to not happen. But in the same time, I think there was a lot of other things behind the scenes. But you never know. It's 50-50, like Cena said. If they stayed, they could have won. Yeah. If he would have gone, we would never know because it's never going to be played out. But you never bet against Jordan. You know what I mean? Yeah, at the end of the day, who's going to bet against Jordan?
In the doc, if you like watch the doc carefully, like the owner said, everyone but Jordan was coming down to a downfall. And the thing is, the owner gave so much power to the GM because it wasn't that the players were going to go initially. It was the fact that they were going to let Phil go. The GM had the GM's daughter, I think, was getting married. This man invited everyone and the future coach, but not Phil. And Phil's the guy that's been with him for 10 years. So like the GM and the owner had something really against their players because they were so egocentric. They're like, yo, why are we not getting the publicity that Jordan and his teammates are getting?
Yeah, in the end, that's what it came down to, right? It was just ego, I guess. Ego got in the way of everybody, and that's what really ruins these dynasties. I give a lot of credit. Like I said, I didn't know too much about what was going on behind the scenes, and like the trials and tribulations these guys went through, like the Mike Jordan and Scottie Pippen and them. Like, yo, they had so much adversity, and we're gonna see in the upcoming weeks as this whole thing unravels. Like, okay, there's more to it than these guys just like want you to get traded or didn't want you to get paid. So it's gonna be interesting in the upcoming weeks to see what's gonna happen. Like, how can there be more to this story? It's gonna be fun to see that. What are some other takeaway that you guys might have saw that intrigued you or you didn't know about before? So I'm interested.
I think like the stuff I saw on Twitter about this making Jordan more of a monster than he really is. or it amplifying that perspective, I think that's really going to come to life in these next couple episodes. Because like Jordan was great, but like think about what he's talked about as a rookie. He was like, yo, when I go in there, I'm gonna find the team leader and take him. Like that's the first person I'm going after. It's like imagine that perspective all the way through his career. And like when he talked about it, as he mentioned it, when he talks about, when you dominate over someone, like you don't give them room to get up for air, and you just dominate and dominate. Like he did that with his teammates too. And you saw it in like the end of the first episode of like how he was like really trying to coach them up or go at them, or the second episode, sorry, where he was really trying to like go at them like for real. And to see that like amplified in a documentary about this person where there's this perception and then this action that can tie it all together, like that's going to be crazy. But I can't wait to see it still.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? Like here we are 20 years or whatever since Jordan retired from the game, but this documentary is pulling in so much viewership because of what he did and how people want to see like, okay, who is this GOAT? And now it's coming to fruition. It's just amazing. It's amazing, like the whole story. And I like how they're doing it. They're going back and they're breaking down each player and how they got those players. I'm also interested to see how this is going to motivate NBA players going forward. I know a lot of them came out on Twitter and they were hyping it up. And this is a question I wanted to probably leave like maybe towards the end of the documentary. Like, what I feel what's going to happen now, I think players are going to stick to a Batman Robin type of system versus getting all three all-stars. Maybe they might stick to like, okay, I'm on Michael Jordan, let me get my Scottie Pippen. And then I think we might even see more loyalty to players staying in one team. Although I like mobility, to be honest, it's kind of fun when if some players go to other teams, it makes it more interesting. But I think we'll see that, okay, look at, as I mentioned, these players, what they went through, and they still stuck it out throughout all the BS that they've been through. So it's going to be interesting. I can't wait, man.
You know what's pretty crazy through the documentary is the fact that, like, Bird, Magic, everyone knew Jordan was the best player in year one, year two.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like for example, with Kobe, you had to wait a bit. With LeBron, like, he was a beast, but it took a bit till he finally won to be like, all right, yeah, he's king. But like with Jordan, like his team straight sucked, but like everyone was just scared to play him because like people were like load managing. This guy came off a broken foot playing in UNC and to come back and drop 50 or 45 and 63 on supposedly the best Celtics team of all time, where they had 4 Hall of Famers in their prime. So it's just like insane how gravitating he was just at such a young age in his NBA career.
That's yeah. Go ahead, Masi. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ali.
Because because he just said that, and one of the points that I took from that documentary is like how Jordan, he got hurt. He fractured his foot in that second episode, I believe they said, and he wanted to come back and still play out the season. But most importantly, one of the reporters asked him like, "Oh, why don't you just sit out and just tank for a better pick?" He's like, "Nah, I'm not about that tank life." He's like, I made a promise that we're gonna make the playoffs and win, and then I have to fulfill that promise. Versus now, like no teams are tanking to get a lottery pick, but here you go, this guy's like, I want that losing culture out.
Yeah, he was concerned about how the team would look, just because he's like, I don't want my team to look like we're quitters. People don't do that anymore.
Guys,
Joel Embiid took 3 years to play.
We keep going back at players now this, players that. It was a different NBA. I mean, if players that now play at that era, I think it's not the players. I think overall the NBA changed as how they call the fouls and how the teams looked at. Then you got Instagram, you got Twitter, you got paparazzis. You got so much media hype that they didn't have back then. Imagine if you caught LeBron on your Instagram Live coming out of a casino in Vegas when there's a game in a day. You know what I mean? Imagine what that would do to the person's image. So now these days, I mean, I think the intriguing part about this is we're going to see how Jordan won as a collective team. It wasn't just all him. I think that's going to, because with us, when we talk about Jordan, he's on a different pedestal, right? No matter what kind of fan you are, you're a Kobe fan, LeBron fan, whatever. In the end of the day, look, Jordan is his own kind of structure. I think he's gonna humanize him a little bit and show a different side of him, that how he needed the rest of the pieces around him to bring that championship home. And as far as Ali said, I don't know if it's going to change a lot in the NBA. I don't think people are going to look at the documentary and really be like, oh, we got to change the way we think or play with each other now, because I think a lot of these players already knew this. A lot of players already, not a lot of people can be Jordan. You can't imitate that. You can't imitate that drive, that passion, that kind of always pushing forward. It's going to be hard to do. And players, I mean, come on, we had Kevin Durant make a newspaper apologize because they called him Cupcake. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're sensitive players, and they're not going to change over a documentary. But I think it is going to be a very, very interesting going forward of how that team came together. And I think it's going to shed light on all the players on the side that we don't even talk about. We just talk about Jordan and Pippen and Rodman, but there's a lot of other pieces that were around them that helped them be the dynasty and the polarizing team that they were.
The only thing I don't agree with is the media part of that. Like, Jordan was such a polarizing figure. Like, look what happened to him in Paris.
But
Yeah.
you don't
that
have
was-
that coverage though, Mike, right? The way that we have social media now, it wasn't like that back then. Yeah, they had media and everything, but to the how much we have, everybody is basically a paparazzi these days, right? Everybody got a smartphone, everybody's got an
But
iPhone.
he was.
Hold
but
on.
there-
So-
but that like spreads out evenly, right? Like, KD gets coverage, Kyrie gets coverage, LeBron gets coverage. It was just Michael Jordan getting coverage, like,
Yeah, so
in a crazy way as
But by
one individual
reporters, right?
person.
You didn't have, say, if you saw, say, Jordan back in the day in Vegas, right? You didn't have a smartphone to pull out and start recording the guy, like, unless you were somebody that had a phone. You know what I mean? Yeah, you took an autograph or a picture in your little camera phone that you had back then. But I'm saying the way that we have media coverage now, you can't even compare it to 20 years ago. Like,
So-
we have advanced so much that we cover every small thing, and we're allowed to, because we have smartphones. Everybody has access to the internet. Everybody has access to a camera they can record. It wasn't like that back then.
So I think Masi's right in the sense of how like any individual could publicize what's going on with Jordan's life, because that's what's honestly true. But in terms of media, I was listening to a podcast with Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons, and the thing is, there was more media coverage back then, because in today's NBA, the players inside the locker rooms and practice facilities and etc., the media can't be in there for too long. But there was an interview where there's 40 cameras and microphones, and the one guy was asking the other podcaster, like, "Yo, did you notice how many cameras are up in his face?" He goes, "Well, yeah, because back then you could go and record a whole 2-3 hour practice session, so you would know everything that was going on in practice session. You would literally be in the locker rooms at all times. They don't kick you out. You just chill in there, in and after the games." Now, like the NBA realized that. Go ahead.
I'm not talking about media coverage.
I think it's more of like me and you, because we can
I'm talking
publicize it.
about just your general life walking around. I think there's more outlets to get things faster. Like, I can get something out in
TMZ.
20 seconds rather than me getting into the locker room, recording, have a media
For
pass.
sure.
I'm talking about, I see
Yeah.
Jordan down the street. He's getting out of a bar. I'm pulling out my phone, recording him. Boom, done. Oh,
But I don't think that would affect Mike. Like, he would just be like,
but I'm saying it would affect
Exactly,
his brand, though,
exactly.
right?
It didn't matter to
No,
him.
but it would affect his brand, though, guys, right? You can admit to that. Like, how people are conscious
Yeah.
about what the athletes are doing now for their kids, and they want to keep that image so they can be in commercials and all
The
this.
brand, most definitely.
Jordan built a brand, and he built a global brand. I get all that, but I'm just saying the coverage, as far as how easy it is, it wasn't as easy back then as it is now.
Moxie is definitely right, because it would have affected his brand. Like, you gotta remember, kids are wearing Jordans, and Jordan playing casino before next Eastern Conference Finals game. That's gonna be a problem. Or Jordan drinking. It's definitely gonna take an effect to his brand. That's why I think LeBron
well,
is so
the thing is, because back then you can't really say that, because you see, this is where the errors come in. Back then, people were more lenient to
You're
these
right.
stuff. You knew
true.
people, players.
Trying to hide it though. Cena, Jordan was still trying to hide it back then. A lot
Not-
of people say that if it was the way it was, like how everybody can record, like he would care. Trust me, he wouldn't be okay with his brand. Like if you're like all right, think about it in the sense of if you saw that all in live, it would be a different perspective if he lost, right? If he still won, you still would be like he was gambling the night. Is that somebody who you want your kids to look up to? You know what I mean? I think it would have been a little different if the coverage was there.
But I don't know. Now, okay, if the
I
players
think
aren't
people
going,
will start gambling.
I think
People
if
will start gambling.
if they,
thinking,
I mean, dude, people are going clubs. I mean, like LeBron and them when they win championship or the Warriors, they all go to the clubs. It's the pop bottles, whatever. That doesn't really affect their brand. I mean, they gamble too. Like, I don't think gambling is that bad.
No, I'm not. But the way he did it, like Sahil said, right? The way he did it, like a game before a game 7. You get what I mean? Like there's a lot of parts that even Jordan,
Yeah,
as
I know what you mean, but
saying that after this documentary, everybody's gonna hate him because there was a perception of Jordan that not a lot of people liked, even as teammates.
I think that was more because he was rough on his teammates and because he punched Steve Kerr.
But if I could make one point before we move to the next topic,
we gotta wrap it up
quickly,
soon, guys, because we don't have much time.
The one thing I would say is, no matter what sport it is or no matter what it is, winning heal all wounds. No matter what, if he's gambling, smoking, or what, if you win, people would just forget about it. I've been watching sports for 15 years. If Odell took that boat and won the next week and had a master game like Jordan did, people would forget about it. Like, yo, they was like going back to the boat again.
You're right. But Jordan built that city. I mean, Jordan built Chicago. I mean, that was a difference also.
Jordan built the NBA after the...
Yo, but think about that.
Go, Mike. Mike's
but hold on. Think about that
Go.
concept that everyone is saying right now. We're all giving Jordan this crazy credit because he put the whole city of Chicago on his back. That means that he also took every single bit of heat and media coverage as one individual, as one human being, one person, bro. But then you have. But then hold on.
Give Mike a chance. Hold on. Give Mike a chance.
Hold on. But you can't. But then you can't give like all these other guys in this era that same credit. They can't have that. That's not possible. Like Kawhi gets to share the limelight with Paul George. Like Scottie Pippen was great, but everyone's right. He made $2 million a year. Like Jordan was the man. The GM owner, everyone keep Jordan. Jordan this. Look what he did his rookie year. Look the shoe deals. The break your foot and go to UNC.
Who Jordan was though in this aspect. I'm just saying 20 years ago we had less coverage. You can't say all of the media. Even back then, if you look at the channels, there weren't even half the channels this as they are now, right?
No, but Michael Jordan was on the TV, though. But Michael Jordan was on the TV. Yeah. You had less coverage with one individual that took over the whole
but you're talking again about just news outlets. I'm talking about every individual that's on the street can now be a reporter because they have a smartphone in their pocket.
But there's more places to put that coverage, though. I have more outlets to put it versus.
That's not you. You're not understanding. In the end of the day, if you saw Magic back then and you had a media, if you had the phone and everything, you're still gonna cover him, right? It's not like nowadays. It's not. It's spread around. Michael was another level. I understand what you're saying. What I don't think you're getting my concept is I'm not talking about just reporters, right? I'm not talking about CBS, ESPN, Fox.
I'm talking about every individual.
Media credentials. Yes, Michael, he was on another level. We all agree on that. I'm talking about just the outlets that we have. There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. There was no quick internet access where you could check anything in 5 seconds in your hand. That's the difference between then and now. Not just the coverage overall of press.
But the thing is, everyone idolized him.
But hold on, time out. I understand what everyone's saying. I'm not saying I don't understand the concept. What we're forgetting, though, is that you're talking about the fact that in this world, we have variety. So I could find out the same news thing 500 ways about 700 people. You could find out something about Michael Jordan one way or 2 ways, and everybody knew about it.
Yeah, but you had to wait till 6 o'clock till they updated the new ESPN, bro. You couldn't wait. You couldn't get it 3 in the morning, right? You
Bro,
had to
we're
wait
at-
for the new news cycle to come out, the paper to come out. You're talking about 1997 is a long time ago when you're talking about digitally, bro.
and he would dominate it, and he would
Right now.
dominate that time. He dominated too.
But
Yo,
again,
telling me
you only had the media covering you, not the world. You didn't have the
No,
world.
the world was, bro.
Jordan, you know
It was
what?
bro, it
bigger
was
than
the
the phone.
same thing. The world had two outlets to cover one man, and he dominated. Yo, we're talking about a man from
Right.
he did something in
I
1997.
don't care
It is
how many outlets you have.
2020.
You're not
Hold on,
beating
it
the
is
coverage of
2020.
1 billion people on Earth. You're talking about
It's the
20
same thing. It's the
outlets.
same
It's
thing.
not. It's not, because I can only cover you certain times. I can only be on your job for certain times, right? I'm not following you till 2 a.m. But you know what? Anybody walks out of their hotel at the same time that Mike can walk out in, right? If you're that polarizing of a figure, everybody's eyes are on you, right? So anything you do anywhere,
So I'm
putting
trying to
I'm
understand.
gonna cover you.
But everybody knows about
I'm
Michael Jordan, and he only had two ways to be reported on.
Why are
And
you watching the
if you go,
documentary,
bro, if you go to Switzerland and ask the man or woman on the street if they know Michael Jordan,
that he was covered. Nobody's denying that. I'm telling you that it would have been more coverage if you like. There would have been a lot more shine to his life if we had the media cover, like if we had the stream that we have now.
Yeah,
If we had the easy access.
it's the same thing.
Alright,
There was
hold on.
only two ways to find out about.
Wait, but because we're running a long time, so before Cena cuts us off, the two things I would say is but the thing is, everyone knew Mike, so it wasn't like you didn't know him. So if you see him coming out the hotel, you be like, oh shit, that's Mike. Let me go tell someone quickly. The second thing is, I don't think he would have gotten put down. I think his light would have went up for the simple fact everyone idolized the man. He wasn't just Michael Jordan. Like I was listening to the radio the other day. Someone said this man's name became a thing. It's like, yo, you're the Michael Jordan of this. You're the Michael Jordan of that. Because he was just so great. So when people would see him or do things, they'd be like, oh, Michael Jordan's gambling? I'm going to gamble. I'm going to be like Michael. Or I'm going to be like Mike. It legit became a saying. I'm going to be like Mike. So I think the media would have just brought him out into a space where like his level of like just being famous would have just blew up even more, honestly. Because everyone would have done things because it's called being like Mike.
But that's my point. If you're telling me that all this stuff would have made this man even better, and he took the scarcity of something and became the greatest of all time. He took two pieces of information as one man and dominated the world. Dominated the world, bro. These athletes now have no.
The world by winning. It had, his demeanor, his winning the championship, put a city that nobody knew about, Chicago, on the map. I mean,
And that was
a lot of different
coverage,
things.
bro. It's due to the coverage.
You're talking about just news. Everybody knew about Mike. Of course, everybody was covering Mike. I'm just saying that we would have more coverage because we have more outlets now. There will be more attention on him than there will
everyone.
Because there will be more eyeballs on him.
But these athletes now should not get a pass and an excuse because they have 500 people covering them. They shouldn't get a pass and an excuse. They shouldn't be soft. They shouldn't be cupcakes about stuff.
There's not about softness. It's about the NBA.
Yeah, bro.
There was no 3-pointer back then, right? You can't foul the way that you foul back then, right? It's the NBA that changed the rules, right? If you foul somebody the way that they fouled back then, it's a flagrant 2 and you're out of the stadium. At that time, it was like, oh, walk it off. You good. Just brush it off. No technical fouls. Play on. The NBA changed the game, not the players. The players didn't say, oh, let's change it to I can't foul you like that.
All right, guys, we got to wrap it up because we're running out of time. Anyways, we're going to have to pause it right here. Sorry. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out our next video is coming out really soon, and we're going to pick it up, dude. All right, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.